The slogan of the sea train in Calgary, painted on the side there, is "Ride the Wind," and it's a very apt slogan. Vancouver's trolley buses are 97% renewable energy, because almost all the electricity in BC is hydro. The suburban trains, the subway in Montreal are 100% renewable energy. And I could point to other examples outside Canada. But even if it's not renewable electricity, there are huge advantages to electric traction. Huge advantages because of the high efficiency of electric motors. An internal combustion engine takes, well, a gasoline engine takes 70% of the energy that you give to it and wastes it as heat. Diesel engine takes 60% and wastes it as heat. An electric motor wastes about 5% of the energy that is given to it as heat. That's the primary reason. Another reason is the simplicity of the parts. I showed you the Tara tiny car, almost a knockoff of the Tata Nano, which is an internal combustion engine. The Tata Nano has 2,500 parts, roughly. The Tara Tiny has 38 parts, moving parts. Okay? And that's the measure of it. An electric motor has one moving part, an internal combustion engine has hundreds. Road transport can be powered entirely by electricity and renewable electricity, and I've mentioned trolley buses a couple of times, but there are other road vehicles. Trolley trucks. Now, you don't see them much on the road, but you see them a lot in mines. This is the Gold Strike mine. It's a Canadian-owned mine in Nevada, in the US. And this is a trolley truck getting its power from these wires overhead there. And this has been done in Quebec as well. They had an iron ore mine in Quebec, and they were using huge amounts of energy, even though it was cheap, with diesel trucks getting the iron ore up those steep slopes. And they put in trolley trucks, and they generated the electricity with a diesel generator. So they were still using diesel. There was no grid there. It's an isolated place. But the energy use went down by 80%. And that's the measure of it. I mentioned ships using wind. This is a firm called Sky Sails. It's coming, I think they may now have started producing these for the market. We have one of these on the front of the book, but a different photo. It's a towing kite. It's a kite that is attached to the boat, that is 200 meters or so up in the air. The kite is roughly the area of the boat, and it saves 30 to 50% of the fuel use by the boat. Boats are already very efficient if they're slow, but it saves 30 to 50%, and even more if they change the routing of the boat to adapt to the wind, going back to the old trade wind routes, which are longer. But if they do that, they can save even more. But they can save 30 to 50% just doing the straight line, or the curve that is the shortest distance routes. So land transport, electricity is the only fuel that has a chance of replacing oil and maintaining the levels of service that we are used to. We looked at the others. We looked at biofuels. We looked at natural gas and oil from coal and all of these, and concluded for different reasons that none of them has a prayer of doing what oil now does in the quantity required to match the transportation levels that we have now. but electricity does. I mentioned that they are more efficient. There are three things you can do to get electricity into a motor on a vehicle. One is you can make the electricity on the vehicle. And that's the Toyota Prius or the Honda Civic hybrid. They are making the electricity through a generator on the motor. That kind of thing has been around for years. Diesel trains are not diesel trains, they are diesel electric trains. They don't drive the wheels directly, they drive the diesel engine drives a generator that drives an electric motor that drives the wheels. Why is that done? It sounds complicated. Why is it done? Because diesel engines are so inefficient that they could never get a train moving from start. Not only are they inefficient, but their inefficiency is greatest at zero speed or just near zero speed. But an electric motor not only is intrinsically efficient, it is at its most efficient at zero. So you need a much smaller motor and you don't need gearing to get the train to move off. If you had straight diesel trains, you would have gearing arrangements that were 4 or 5 times as large as the actual train in order to get the thing moving away from start. So that's why every diesel train is not actually a diesel train, except for the very smallest ones that you see around shunting yards. Every diesel train is actually a diesel electric train. So that's one way. You make the electricity on board. The second way is that you, this is another version of that. This is a car coming out, General Motors hopes in a couple of years, the Chevy Volt. It's really just like another hybrid vehicle, but they are positioning it as being somewhere between a hybrid and a battery vehicle. The second way is the battery vehicle, where the electricity is made off board, is fed to the vehicle and stored on the vehicle, and then drives the motor as required. Now, if you go back to the early days of motoring, around 1900, there were as many electric cars as there were gasoline cars. In fact, there were even more steam cars than either electric cars or gasoline cars. But the reason, and the electric cars were better in every respect except one. And that is they had a very short range, and you had to have at the end of that range another place to charge them. And batteries did not improve. Batteries did not improve for 100 years. They hardly improved. They improved a bit. And that's why the gasoline engine prevailed. The steam engine didn't prevail because it was messy and you didn't like to shovel coal in the middle of a traffic jam and so on. But the gasoline engine prevailed in spite of its disadvantages because it had a very portable, easy to use energy supply, gasoline. Only just now, again, are we getting even to the point where we can think about useful battery electric cars. But there is the third way of doing it, which I've mentioned, but not in relation to cars, which is you just feed the electricity as the vehicle is moving. And that is the most efficient. Feed the electricity as the vehicle is moving, you've got a loss of around 10% from where you produce the electricity. Batteries, about 30%. Making electricity on board, where it's comparable, is 75 or 80%. This is a complicated thing that illustrates the application of the second law of thermodynamics, which everybody should know, of course. But what it is electricity from a wind turbine that